This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm here in the kitchen today with Chef Anthony Rolls. And Anthony Rolls, what are we going to be doing today?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. We've got a whole leg of pig here, otherwise known as what could be a ham. And we're just going to kind of break it down and take the bone out. And there'll be like a couple different places to do that from.
Superb. Let's go ahead and get this done. We are using today the Wüsthof Ikon Classic Boning Knife and the Wüsthof Classic Ikon 8-inch Chef's Knife. Okay, let's get going.
So essentially this is like the skin part of it. Can I have a towel, please?
Yes.
And as we kind of look into it and kind of see where we're going to go in, we're gonna start with what I like is the boning knife to kind of get away from some of these like little bones or like the bigger bones. See this, how this one kind of moves here?
Yes, yep.
So that would be like right here
on the hip.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll kind of just gonna go around it. I like to get as much meat away from the bone as possible. And when you're using the knife, it's important to kind of always try to go away from you, right? Because you don't want to kind of slip and stab yourself. But yeah, see how this, it just kind of shows itself, and as you're kind of moving it along, you can just kind of stretch the meat away from it and it'll come away from the bone.
I see that.
Isn't that beautiful? And then you can kind of see more as we do over here. And as I said before, always go away from you, but since I'm a professional, I'm just gonna make some little slits in here kind of towards me. But don't you do this, Jamie.
Okay.
All right?
I'll lose my finger probably. Yeah. And how much meat is on one of these hams?
There's a lot of meat here, which is fantastic. It's gonna we're gonna use it for a beautiful porchetta at the restaurant, and I'll actually take it back there and stuff it with probably some pork shoulder and a little bit of sausage as well.
Lovely.
So you can kind of see better if you're just kind of going along this bone here, and it's important just to kind of use like the top piece of it as well, because you can't always see anything. And as we kind of, there we go. So you kind of see more as you go into it, which is beautiful. Yeah, perfect.
I'm sure you don't usually have an assistant to peel back the meat for you.
Well, it's interesting with something like this. It's not only about the assistant, but it's also about gravity too.
Right.
So if we were doing this at the restaurant, it was a much bigger animal. It's kind of helpful to kind of have half of the animal almost kind of off the table, which creates this kind of...
Oh, so it pulls the meat away from the bone.
What you're doing as well, right? Which is beautiful. But we got, this is a great piece of meat, Jamie.
What makes it a great piece of meat?
Well, one, it's kind of fresh and delicious. And I'm never a proponent of eating a raw pork, but you can really just kind of see it. This is interesting over here when we get into the ball joint here, right? So there's a little, you see this tendon there? You can just kind of snip at the tendon.
Okay.
And it just kind of comes right off.
All right.
Go a little further around this bone here. And that's it. Okay. So we did pretty good.
All right. So you take this and use this for stock eventually,
right? You can kind of roast it and use it for stock. We at the restaurant, if we're kind of collecting the bones, we can do it over a long period of time, keep it in the freezer, and then once we have enough, then we can just kind of make like a nice big rich pork stock.
Right.
Okay. So as we kind of get into this bigger, chunkier piece of meat, I'm going to use the chef knife just to kind of cut it open, and then we can splay it out.
Okay.
And then we'll have a really much better idea of where all the bones are. And again, you can kind of use the tip of the knife here against the bone, feel where you're going.
And you need one of the bigger chef's knives for that, right?
You can use the smaller one, but I like to use the bigger one as well, and just the tip, and you just follow the bone all the way down, just kind of pressing against the bone. Yeah. Okay. And what do you
end up with once you've taken this apart today?
We're going to end up with like a nice big kind of beautiful blanket of pork.
Right.
That's a nice saying, isn't it? Blanket of pork.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
You could roll up with tons of spices and kind of either roast really slow or kind of cut it up and make a stew out of it. The leg tends to be much leaner than the shoulder, right? So stewing's okay, but this can also be like much more of a quick cook type of meat too.
I see.
And would be a good addition to sausage. So even with this bone here, I'm going to kind of pull it back on me where the weight's over here.
Yeah, I see that. So gravity is your friend in this kind of situation.
Yeah, and then it just kind of pulls apart.
How often are you taking legs apart like this?
We do it at all the restaurants. At Big Crow, it's funny, we actually leave as much on the bone as possible because we either slow roast it or smoke it.
Right.
And the longer, the slower you can kind of smoke anything on the bone is better. At Rose and Sons, because it can be like a little bit of a quicker cook, we do tend to take everything off the bone and kind of make like a stew or even like a sausage. And at Fat Pasha, we don't serve pork at all.
I understand why.
And then even like at Swan now, similar to Rose and Sons, we actually do kind of bigger roasts there too,
Right.
especially like on a Sunday. So you can see one more of these joints over here,
Yeah,
and
I
I
see
left
that.
this piece against there because we'll kind of come back to it as well. And the same thing with the weight, like even if you just kind of pull up on this,
Yeah, I can see that.
the rest of the weight's just kind of coming down. And you can see like I'm really just using the tip.
Very cool. I think a lot of home chefs would be intimidated with a piece of meat this big and then taking it apart like this, but you make it seem so easy.
But it's also fun, right? And it's a learning experience.
Where did you learn your butchery skills?
Years ago, probably, I remember working with Mark Tuitt. I saw one of his cookbooks on his shelf there, and he's a fantastic butcher.
Really?
Yeah. He's, to me, one of the greatest chefs in the country. So we've got a couple different things that we'll go back here for, and then
Wow. What do you think of this cutting board here? Actually, the butcher block.
I love the butcher.
You like that one? Yeah. It's a new addition to the kitchen.
At first, I thought it was a little high.
Yeah.
But I'm tall.
Yeah.
When I stand straight.
That was on purpose, actually.
So there's like a little bit of extra meat that is left here, and then even like a little bit over here with the hock as well. And what's great about this piece over here is that when you do get into the hock, which would be like a lot of this meat down here, there's a lot of different muscles here compared to like some other muscles up here that we'll get into that are much bigger. A lot of the muscles down here are much better suited for like stewing, right? Where something like up here could be a little better for like a roast, a quick roast.
Yeah.
So now we're just going to kind of take it apart into some of the different muscles, and you can really see, even if you just kind of pull this guy up here, see where all this connective tissue is?
Yep.
We just kind of follow it. You can use your fingers to kind of break it up as well. To really see what's going on. Yeah, so essentially this is like one muscle right here.
Wow. Okay.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So even with this guy right here, this is what they would use for like a prosciutto.
Okay.
They would keep it whole and on the bone. But there's actually different companies out there, in the States as well, that would take smaller pieces of the whole leg and make a prosciutto out of that. And it's actually, saves a lot of time. And then you can see this piece over here with all of its, see that guy coming out already?
Impressive. I'm enjoying this.
You know what? I'm enjoying it too. I don't actually...
You don't get to do it that often then?
I don't get to cook that much anymore, which is something that I always talk about at my restaurants. Like I love, designing the menus.
Yes, yeah.
Doing all that beautiful, creative stuff, but I'm not in the kitchen as much as I'd like to be. So thank you for inviting me to your kitchen.
It is my pleasure. It's been too long, actually. All right. And how many pieces do you end up with? Like?
We're going to end up probably with about 1, 2, 3, 4, probably about 6 to 7 different muscles in here.
Wow.
Go for this guy over here. It's still got a little bit of bone attached to it. And always move the meat so it's easier for you to get at.
Right, okay.
Especially with butchery, just kind of, anytime you can kind of move something, so the weight's different, so the angle is different, so you can see it, and so it's easier for you to butcher.
Right, so you can throw it around the butcher's block as much as need be, right?
Yeah. And there's this little piece that we had there before, but we'll just cut around it for the time being.
And what do you do with all this wonderful fat?
I like to roast this on it, score it a little. We'll marinate this kind of overnight, maybe even brine a couple pieces of it and smoke a piece here and kind of roast a piece there. And really depending on what it is. This guy over here I'll probably just kind of have for lunch when I get back to the restaurant. And then I'll give a couple pieces up to Chris Sanderson up at Big Crow to smoke as well.
Okay.
So there's actually a couple different muscles in here right now. You can kind of see this one bulging, which is beautiful.
How much pork do you go through with all the different restaurants right now in a week?
Depending on the restaurant, right? So I got Big Crow, between like the ribs and the smoked pork. I'm gonna leave this, there's actually a couple muscles here, but I'll leave it together because I can just see that if we kind of brine that and roast it and tie it, it'd be fantastic. And then where else did I want to go over here? So yeah, Fat Pasha we use 0, at Schmaltz we use 0. Rose and Sons we go through like a ton of pork belly. We make our own kind of braised bacon.
Right, yeah.
Like a Dr. Pepper bacon, which I love. And that goes on all of our breakfasts, and we make it like a BLT as well.
It's quite delightful as well.
And then Big Crow is probably our biggest place for pork because of the ribs. And we do or we have been doing like a pulled pork over there during the summer. Or like a smoked chopped pork. I actually don't love pulled pork because I think it gets the grains
too kind of sinewy. And,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
So I actually like it chopped. But yeah, a ton of ribs down there. Can you still see me?
Oh, yeah.
That's it. This is a great knife.
How important is the sharpness of the knife to you when you're working with it?
Oh, huge, right? Actually, one of the things that I love doing in the kitchen is going around and touching the cook's knives, and if they're not sharp,
you give them hell for it.
Well, because it's actually like a waste thing as well.
Right.
I'm going to keep this piece as is as well. This is more of like the braising piece I was talking about. So we'll cut this up later and probably make some chili out of it.
And the reason you'd be using that as a braising piece is because of all of this connective tissue?
Yeah, not only the connective tissue, but like the really small muscles where you kind of get down into like the shank here. And these smaller connective tissues really need kind of like the long slow, cook. It could be like a long, slow roast, which I love, or like a braise too.
Okay.
And then we'll go back into this guy. I love this piece here because it's really kind of flappy, and to make like a nice big beautiful steak or kind of roast out of that is fantastic. I would leave some, so you asked about the fat earlier, you can leave some of this on, and you can we'll take some of the skin off, and we can use that for sausage meat as well.
Right, okay. How do you feel these knives perform today?
These are great, really nice. I've got a collection of them at home, and I've been using them forever and ever. What's beautiful about the Wüsthof knives is that they keep their edge. Right. As long as you are in control of kind of using the knife, you know how to use it. And most home cooks, all they really need is to kind of have a steel, the Wüsthof steel as well, and they can go forever with one of these guys. So
Anthony Rose, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today, showing us how to take apart this big ham. Absolutely fantastic. Thanks for using these knives.
Thanks.
Take care.
Cheers, man.